So why should you care? You know, there's three really big IT consulting research firms, right? IDC, Gartner, and InfoTrends. So IDC coined the imaging space as the last large unmanaged expense in business, right? And it's just because it's so fragmented. You know, back to those 5 different vendors. So believe me, I mean, here, CFO, finance world, owner. Okay, so I mean, if I ask you your employee cost per person, you know it off the top of your head, right? You know, we know as a ratio? No? Okay. Your HR person would know it, right? Right? Your occupancy costs. They know their occupancy costs. They know how many employees they have, right? Our payroll as a percent of our revenues. So there's very few big expenses inside of a business that finance or business unit executives aren't acutely aware of. Yet we have this large number, and we'll get into the numbers, but this large number in our document area, and because it's so fragmented, it's hard to put. It's not a line item on your income statement. So one way to measure it is print and copying expense for the average office worker is $1,000 a year, right? That's not creation through destruction, right? So that's not storing them. There's some other numbers you see in the next slide. That's just making prints and copies, $1,000 per knowledge worker. So if you have 5,000 knowledge workers, you're spending $5 million a year just making prints and copies inside your organization. Right? Normal device to user ratio. So, you know, that picture I painted before, the fax, scanner, copy, or MFP on the shelf, there's 4 users for every device. That's a normal office today, right? Optimized. So those companies that have focused on driving down the number of devices are in the 8 to 10 range. So about half the devices. Again, no cultural change. It's tough to do that overnight, but over time, working with LDI, you can accomplish that. Right? And the average printer fleet is greater than 9 years old, right? So like, we don't want to throw these things away. Yet, you know, you probably pay for a new one in 7 months worth of electricity of the old ones versus the new ones. We'll get into some examples of that, not to mention the print speed's about 5% of what they are today. So, you know, I said that $1,000 per person. This is total document cost. So this is creation to destruction. So it includes filing, right? This is from All Associates. It's a smaller research firm. You know, so the average, and all the research firms will pay this, Gartner, InfoTrends, you know, the average is 6% of your revenue. Average. Obviously, you know, depending on the industry you're in, for instance, government, computer database services, advertising are high, right? They're in the 14%, 15%. Transportation, petroleum, obviously all the capital there is in, you know, the wells or the locomotives or whatever, right? So a lot different model, but the average is 6% from creation to destruction. So an initial MPS engagement would not address that, but as LDI helped you to digitize your workflow, it would affect that 6%. Obviously, you need less. It just looks like anybody's office in here, right? You know, so we bought a black and white printer, then somebody said they need color, so we got color. Then the manager in the office said, what did they say? Why did they have a printer in their office? Yeah, bingo, you got it. I print confidential information. I need a printer in my office, right? Hey, we have a solution for you, secure print. You just press the code in and the prints come out. Right? We don't need that printer in the office anymore, right? And then, you know, IT or whomever, you know, manages the printer, they keep all the old ones in case one breaks, right? You know, who cares that, you know, again, I could buy a new one in 6 months with the energy usage there, but, you know, they keep the old ones, you know, the copier, the MFD, the printer, normal office. Right? So what does good look like? If I said, hey, we said before the best companies are at 8 to 10. So, you know, what's a near-term goal? I'm not going to get from 4 to 8 to 10. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to rip out half my printers. My end users will shoot me, right? 6 to 1. So you should be at 6 to 1 fax, scanners, copiers, MFD to employees. Balanced deployment, right? Balanced deployment. So if a copier company comes in and tells you they're selling MPS, and that MPS is throw away all your printers and buy copiers, that's not a balanced deployment. And I'll show you some slides financially. There's times when printers make sense. There's times when copiers make sense. And there's pretty delineated lines when those things occur. But the best print environments are a mixture of single-function printers, multifunctional printers, and multifunction copiers. Printers and copiers have different technologies. You know, one's more expensive to buy, less expensive to run. Obviously, the opposite of the other, less expensive to buy, more expensive to run. And there's periods where they make sense. So here's a normal environment. We go in here, they have 80 printers, 3 to 4 different manufacturers, right? 20 different models. So they're buying cartridges for all these. And then they have whatever, one HP5 that they throw away, and they have 3 cartridges on the shelf. And they think they save money not buying the printer, and they have $600 in cartridges that they could throw away with the printer now. Right? So it just made no sense to have that one printer. Plus you have to support it, obviously, you know, for those IT in here, if you're not using the same universal print drivers, you have all these drivers to support. Right? Reduce carbon footprint with intelligent devices. So the old devices didn't go off when they weren't used. They used just as much power. The new devices go into a sleep mode when they're off, right? Remove end users from customer support. So LDI has a software they put on your software, on your network. It's non-invasive. They can give you a white paper on it. Just it's SNMP signals, pings the MIB in the printers, tells them when you need cartridges, tells them when you need service. So it's not like your end users need to enter through a web source or call for service. We know before you know that you need that service, right? And then in the long term, again, very unusual unless your CEO or your CFO wants to make an immediate cultural change. But over the long term, help identify areas where we can digitize and reduce the number of prints that you're making, right? So here's a normal environment when we go in. Right? They have a bunch of devices, fax printers, copiers. There was no real, nobody paid any attention to how they were placed. And you know, that's not critical of anybody. That is every single company where I've ever seen an assessment done. There's just devices all over the place. It's just, you know, the way it happened. Multiple departments buying the devices, multiple devices, right? And then you have all your end users, and then you have all these multiple vendors that first of all interface with your end users for service, for supplies. You know, I almost bet you, I tell you, in 75% of the companies where we do assessments, they say, oh, I'm buying all my cartridges on my supply contract from, boom, whoever. Office Depot, Staples, whoever the heck they use. And then when we go through and do the assessment, we find they have cartridges from 3 different companies. You know, there's different stickers on them. Because people inside are getting calls and ordering these cartridges, right? So you have all these vendors that are pinging your end users, and then they want FaceTime with you, obviously, right? They want to make sure they retain the relationship, so it takes your time to maintain your vendors, right? You could probably cross over one another, you know, on the side here, finance, IT, materials management, purchasing, as you know, the copiers, printers, scanners, you know, who's in charge of them now, you know, where does it make sense? Here's where we get you. This takes the longest time. Because, again, we're very sensitive to culture. We don't want to come in and flip around. You know, you have 120 printers, and we tell you 50 are misplaced, and we're going to flip 25 pairs to get them in the right place. Right? Create headaches for you, for your end users. We don't want to do that. We also don't want to come in and say, hey, I know you bought these 12 printers 6 months ago, throw them out, they're the wrong thing. We'll try and help you place them in the right place. So this happens over time. Say over, 18 to 24 months into the agreement, this is what you'll look like. This side, the right side for you folks, can happen immediately. We put that software on your network. We start to ping your printers, know when they need supplies, know when they need service, auto ship the supplies. We become your interface. We have, even if all your contracts aren't with us, we have visibility to all your contracts, can start to give you consulting services, on how to reduce your total cost of ownership over time. Okay, so, a few reasons. Number one, why haven't companies done this themselves internally? Well, they just don't have the focus. It's not like it's a full-time job, right? This isn't a 40-hour-a-week job. You'd have to educate your whoever you're going to put in charge of it on, all the printers out there, the copiers, the way they work, the cost dynamics of how they work. And then the other thing is what happened in the industry from a print perspective.